Welcome into the latest edition of ESPN FC on the day that the transfer window in England...
Slam shut,
closed, done and dusted. The one in Spain, though, is still open for a little bit longer. A little later on, Sid Lowe will be telling us whether or not Barcelona will finally get Coutinho. But for now, I'm joined by Ali Moretto and Craig Burley. Also, welcome to the show, Gab Marcotti and Stuart Robson. Gab, I want to start with you and talk about Alexis Sanchez, because he's still an Arsenal player.
Yeah, absolutely remarkable. I think the events of the last 72 hours, obviously, Arsenal in a very clear position vis-a-vis Alexis Sanchez. He's turned down all offers of contract extensions, like Mesut Ozil. He was going to walk as a free agent in June. And I think the mood at Arsenal was, all right, fine, at this stage, if we can get a good fee for him, let's go and do this. Now, they turned down 2 offers from Manchester City, 2 all-cash offers. The explanation was ostensibly that they wanted a player in part exchange. They asked for Raheem Sterling. They weren't sure about bringing in somebody else in time. Then all of a sudden they jumped on the Thomas Lemar bandwagon, thinking that they could sign him. They offered 100 million euros, in excess of $100 million for him. He turned them down. End result, City said, fine, well, we're going to take this 60 million or whatever it was that we're going to give you and walk away. You can keep Alexis Sanchez. And Lemar also turned down Arsenal. So in the end, they're left with a player who's going to walk in June.
In theory, this is a good thing for Arsenal? I don't know. Like, at the start of the summer, this would be a good thing, wouldn't it? They get hold of Alexis Sanchez?
No, because I think the relationship wasn't great anyway with Wenger. I think there's some issues, and we talked about it yesterday, allegedly with some of his teammates, some of the more experienced ones. Clearly, he wants to go, and I don't blame him, because this is a club, a team that are going backwards under this current leadership. The nail went into coffin when Wenger agreed this new contract. As soon as Wenger agreed the new contract and said, I'm staying, then I think this fella made his mind up, right, I've got to get out of here. Unfortunately for him, and I'm sure his representatives were trying as hard as they can and trying to push it and trying to make maybe some threats, I don't know, kind of what you do, you try and play a bluff game, but it hasn't happened. So what 12 months or 10 months are we going to see from him and Arsenal before the World Cup next year? Because I won't question his professionalism, but it's going to be difficult for him.
Arsenal have turned down 60 million for a player that wants out and will be free at the end of next year.
And according to the reports, as Craig just mentioned, the players also want out. I don't quite understand. Because, OK, say you keep Alexis Sanchez, right? You've kept him. What is the best that you're going to do if you're Arsenal? What are you going to achieve this season? How about cash in? Cash in, because you're not competing for the title. If you're thinking that that's what's happening here, you're not. You're not competing for a top 4. That's not happening either. And so, yes, cash in, take advantage of what the money that's available, and then, even more importantly, do something valuable with that money. Invest it properly. Evaluate the player that you want, that you need, and bring them in. Apparently, that's too difficult to do.
Gab, before I go back to you, I want to introduce Stuart Robson to the show. Robbo, of course, have got strong opinions about Arsene Wenger and Arsenal. What do you make of what we've seen happen in the transfer window regarding Alexis Sanchez, Robbo?
Well, here's a player, and we've just talked about it, who doesn't want to be at the club. And last year, when Arsene Wenger dropped him against Liverpool, he put it out in the press that Alexis Sanchez didn't do as much running as people said he did. He wasn't such a good team player as people said he was. They hung him out to dry. And this is a player that doesn't want to be there. And I think with the World Cup year, I think at Arsenal, he'll be injured for most of the time. He'll just keep himself ticking along. He won't give maximum performance. He'll be ready for Chile, because he doesn't have to put great performances in for Arsenal to be in top form for Chile come the World Cup. It's a bad move for Arsenal, I think, in keeping him. A few weeks ago, I'd have said it was a great move, but now he's a player that just doesn't want to be there.
It's interesting how things have changed, isn't it, over the last couple of months. Gab, I know you wanted to get in.
Oh, just Ali hit the nail on the head. If you're Arsenal, this is what you've done. You've taken the 60 million pounds, which is what, $75 million, and you have basically gone and made a big bonfire, and you have burned all that money, basically as a point of pride, as some weirdo point of principle, as the illusion of finishing top 4. They could have cashed in on Alexis Sanchez. And ironically on this, the excuse that they gave is, well, we would have been short on players. No, you would not have been short on players because you still had Welbeck, Giroud, Lacazette, Mesut Ozil, Alex Iwobi. Plus, on the last day, if you're just interested in bodies, you still had Lucas Perez and Joel Campbell, both of whom Arsenal let go. Campbell's on loan, and Lucas Perez, I think they sold. So it's not a question of bodies. It's simply a question of thinking that an unhappy Alexis Sanchez for a year and then you lose him for nothing is a better option than 60 million so you can rebuild. And I think they made the wrong choice.
Are we not being a bit hypocritical here in the sense that we seem to be applauding Liverpool for standing firm and keeping Coutinho, yet we seem to be lamenting Alexis Sanchez and Arsenal because of the way this has been handled?
I think the situation with Coutinho would appear to me to be more manageable than the one with Sanchez. With that, which I think, and the boys have touched on it, I think it's run its course. I think it's run its course, his relationship with some of the players and his relationship with the manager, because clearly he's not stupid. He can see that Wenger is not progressing the club. There is an argument to say that Klopp is progressing Liverpool with the people they're bringing in and the job that he's doing and the background of recent years where he was successful with Dortmund. So I think the situation is slightly different. And the Fenway Group, of course, have dug their heels in so far with this Coutinho deal. So Arsenal's need was more to restructure this club. But it's not going to happen. Well, there's another 5 transfer windows or 6 transfer windows with this guy at the helm. That's the problem. The biggest transfer that needs to be made out of Arsenal is the manager. That needs to happen. It needs to happen soon.
Gab, you mentioned it before. Thomas Lemar, what went down there? Why didn't he join Arsenal?
So, from what I've been told, the Lemar situation is this. Monaco were just adamant that they were not going to sell. This held true for much of the summer. Lemar's people said, well, wait, once they sold Mbappe, they said, you know what, maybe we can get out as well. They started punting him around to different clubs. And the story that had him linked to Liverpool in the last 2-3 days apparently originated from Lemar's camp. Arsenal had taken a look at Lemar earlier. They were pretty convinced he wouldn't be for sale, if not for stupid money. And then once he was linked to Liverpool, they became convinced, well, you know what, maybe we can go. Maybe we can sell Alexis, take the money, and use that money to go and buy Lemar, and then we've got something to be excited about. The problem is, Thomas Lemar, at the same time, was preparing for and playing in a crucial international for France against Holland. Even with some of his France teammates who play for Arsenal, like Koscielny and Giroud, trying to convince him to come over, he said, guys, I'm not going to make a key career decision right now, minutes before we have to play in this crucial qualifier. And so at that point, that deal was dead. And at that point, when Arsenal still could have sold Alexis Sanchez, they said, well, no, we're going to need him because we haven't got Lemar. Makes no sense whatsoever.
Stuart Robson, how things have changed for Arsenal Football Club. Craig was talking about it earlier, about the fact that 10, 12 years ago, part of the Invincibles, how you wanted to be part of that team. Now, even with £100 million, they couldn't get their man.
Thomas Lemar has made the right decision, because if you look at the history over the last few years of young players, top quality players going to Arsenal, they've got worse. Because there's no proper coaching going on, there's no development of players. You look at the likes of Wilshere, you look at the likes of Oxlade-Chamberlain, you look at some of the Debussy coming in at right back. We've never heard of him for the last 2 years. There's a lot of players that have gone to Arshavin, was one of the top players in the world, came to Arsenal and went downhill. He was a shadow of himself by the time he left. So that's why players will not want to go to Arsenal at the moment, because of the management and the coaching at the football club, which is substandard.
As if we're picking on them a little bit, Arsenal, because there's other teams that didn't quite get all the transfers done, but it is frustrating because this is such a big club, such a successful club over the years, but it's just getting run down because of one guy's arrogance. Let's look at it from this point of view. You've got an unhappy player, as Robbo mentioned, and Sanchez, who hasn't got his move and is unlikely to be really rolling his sleeves up. Let's be frank about that. You've got Mesut Ozil, who goes in the missing list for all his talent. You've got Xhaka and Ramsey, who were absolutely rotten again at the weekend, and that's not the first time. They've let the Ox go, and they've got Theo Walcott and the likes on the bench. So, you know, just how are they going to drive forward with those names that I've mentioned?
Danny Welbeck. Danny Welbeck is your guy.
Danny Welbeck's the man.
That's a guy. That's a guy that'll take you where you need to go.
We'll talk to Sid a little bit later on in the show, but coming up after the break, we'll be focusing on the World Cup qualifiers in Europe today. In particular, France's match against the Dutch. And boy, did the French put on a show. Welcome back, Japan. Going to the World Cup once again. That's after that victory against Australia this week. Despite that defeat, the Socceroos are still big favourites, according to the SBI, to qualify for next year's World Cup. The Soccer Power Index has them at 88%. Meanwhile, you take a look at what happened in Europe, and no question, the big game today was in France, where they thrashed the Dutch by 4-0. That, coupled with Sweden's defeat away against Bulgaria, France all but through then to the World Cup next year. This was some performance from the French, wasn't it? At some stage, it looked like they were just toying with the Dutch.
Well, we talked yesterday briefly in the show about the Dutch, for those that watched, and how Dutch football has just not bringing these players through anymore. Yes, some of the older players were there, Van Persie off the bench, Snyder's there, Robben's there, but they're all coming towards the end of their career. Whilst the French, it's all young, dynamic, powerful players that are all playing at the top level, either in their own country or abroad. And after the disappointment of the Euros, where everybody thought they were going to win when they got to the final, they didn't. They've picked the baton up again, and Deschamps has arguably got one of the best squads, if not the best young squad in world football.
I think one way that you can look at this is while the Netherlands are featuring guys like Arjen Robben and Robin van Persie and Wesley Sneijder, in the French national team, there is no place for Karim Benzema.
Yep.
And as big a name as he is, and he plays for Real Madrid, and whatever differences he has with the manager, who are you going to take out of this team?
I mean, I suppose you would take Giroud out and put Benzema in, but the other argument to that, I mean, that would be a clear choice if they were at club level. But in all fairness to Giroud, we hammer him playing for Arsenal, but his goal-scoring record for France is literally 1 and 2. It's very good, and it suits Deschamps' style of playing. He can make the changes, so yeah, that's how good the French are at the moment. They can leave 3 or 4 of the stars out and still field a very good side.
Meanwhile, Robbo, as good as the French have been, the Dutch have just completely collapsed, haven't they, after finishing, what, 3rd in the World Cup back in 2014. It's a bit sad, really. We all grew up watching these great Dutch players, and now there's just, well, none of them.
Well, there's a massive problem in Dutch football because years ago, as you just said, they were developing great players. They had the best coaches in the world, but they've been stuck in time. Their style of football is all about possession. In the games that I cover, most of their games, they have 75% possession. That wasn't the case tonight, but they don't penetrate with it. They pass the ball round the back. They stay in their position. There's none of this free-flowing football that we've talked about the Dutch before. They are in an absolute rut at the moment, and it's got to start with their FA. They've got to change the coaching structure. They've got to change their philosophy, because if they carry on doing the things they're doing at the moment, they certainly won't qualify for this World Cup, and they won't qualify for World Cups to come for quite some while.
Meanwhile, away from Group A, just some other results of note. Portugal beating Faroe Islands by 5-1. No surprise in that. Cristiano Ronaldo getting a hat-trick in that game. Still 3 points adrift of Switzerland, who beat Andorra by 3-0. Meanwhile, the biggest scoreline happened as Belgium beat Gibraltar 9-0. The big storyline in that game, Eden Hazard scoring, of course, hasn't played for Chelsea so far this season because of injury. Stay with us. After the break, we'll be talking Kylian Mbappe. Sid Lowe will be telling us why he didn't go to Real Madrid. Welcome back. So it was confirmed today, Kylian Mbappe is now a PSG player. Sid, wasn't he supposed to be going to Real Madrid?
Well, that was certainly one of the possibilities, and it was something that Real Madrid were interested in. It was something that we were told, of course, that Mbappe himself was interested in. This is a player who's made no secret of the fact that he's a Real Madrid fan, who, of course, had been at Madrid and looked around, looked after, chaperoned by Zinedine Zidane a few years ago, has posters of Ronaldo all over his walls. And, of course, Real Madrid are a team who traditionally have quite liked the big summer signings, so much so that Florentino Perez, the president, earlier in the summer said, look, right now I'm not going to sign anyone, but you all know that I get better as the summer goes on and I perform my best on the 31st of August. So I think we all thought there was half a chance. But fundamentally what happened here was that not enough of the ingredients were in place, that Real Madrid couldn't clear a space for him in their team. There wasn't an obvious place in which to put him, with Benzema staying, Bale staying, Cristiano Ronaldo staying, with Asensio coming through, with Isco playing an important part last season, even with the departure of James Rodriguez. And then there was the price. And you know, we often look at Real Madrid and think, well, this is the club for whom money is no object, but there is still a structure that needs, at least to a point, to be respected. And last summer, of course, we saw them not sign Pogba,
if Real Madrid wanted to sign him, they could, couldn't they? Like, you talk about the structure, but they obviously got Morata off there, but James as well. If they really wanted him, they could have got him. Financially, at least.
I mean, absolutely. If they really, really wanted him, but part of the kind of, if you like, the conditioning factors that decide whether you want to do this, part of that is financial, and there is a limit to what they do. And when they look at the price and think, right, OK, if the price is going to be this high, and we haven't got a way, an obvious way to put him into the team, maybe we don't go for this, and I think ultimately that's what happened. Bear in mind as well that Mbappe has a part to play in all this as well. You know, he is from Paris. The opportunity, I guess, to go to Paris Saint-Germain may have always been attractive, and even more so once Neymar turns up. You must think to yourself, wow, this is a club that really is going somewhere. And so, you know, I think that fundamentally not enough of the ingredients fell into place. Some of them were there, but not all of them.
What do you think, boys? Real Madrid miss out here?
No, I don't think so. Real Madrid were not desperate to get Kylian Mbappe. If they had been in a situation where getting this player makes a difference between them winning the Champions League or not, they go after Mbappe and they get him. As you said, if they were desperate about chasing Mbappe, they would have gotten him. That's the sort of power that Real Madrid does have. I do think that this is a team that is well set up and well balanced, and why mess it up? Why try to force something that doesn't need to be forced? If I'm Real Madrid, I'm thinking I've made an intelligent decision. It would have been nice to have Mbappe, but you don't want to throw everything out the window because of one player.
Every club in Europe would have been desperate for him apart from one. Real Madrid.
Yep.
They're not in a desperate situation. They're a very healthy club at the moment, playing-wise. Even when Ronaldo got into his 30s, he proved a lot of people wrong last year. They've got some great youngsters coming through. And listen, as Sid said, Mbappe could have manoeuvred this Real Madrid's way if he really wanted.
Right.
You as a player could go to your club. He could have went to Monaco and said, listen, the only club I'm going to is Real Madrid. So you go and sort it out with Real Madrid and come back to me when it's done. And they might say, well, you know, if they don't pay the money, you're not going. We'll say, well, I'm not going. So as a player, you can manoeuvre...
I like the role play there, that was it.
Sorry?
I like the role play.
Yeah.
The characters, it was
Yes,
nice.
yes.
Oh, I may have been in that situation once or twice. The money might have been 3 or 4 million back then, but I do know I gave me bluff when I see it. And so people think you know, a bid comes in and the player must just go. It doesn't happen that way. A player can manoeuvre it a certain way. So he was obviously had a level of being comfortable about staying in France and going to Paris Saint-Germain, see how it goes, and then possibly on to Real Madrid or somewhere else.
Good move for him, you think, PSG?
Yeah, it was a very good move for him. He stays, you know, pretty much home.
Yeah.
He's a great player. He's going to be playing with Neymar and Cavani. They are a good side. And, you know, they're going to punch some sort of hole in the Champions League. Whether signing Neymar and him is enough to topple the likes of Real Madrid, I think that's a big ask.
Sid, meanwhile, of course, the transfer window for you doesn't shut.
Good.
Good. Yeah, you're going to have to do a bit more work.
Goody!
And Barcelona have asked pretty much everyone, haven't they, to join in, apart from maybe Craig and Ali. Looking at it, we talked about Thomas Lemar earlier on in the show. Any possibility that he didn't go to Arsenal because he wants to go to Barcelona? And, of course, there's still the Coutinho question as well, isn't there?
It's quite extraordinary, isn't it? I mean, the number of names that have been linked to Barcelona, the number of names that Barcelona have filtered out there, and curiously, and to bring you back to what we were talking about a minute ago, I think it's baffling that Mbappe wasn't one of them. I think it's baffling that Barcelona, once they had that money for Neymar, given that at that stage Mbappe's deal to Paris Saint-Germain wasn't necessarily on the table, go and get Mbappe, because you've got a short-term replacement for Neymar on the left and you've got a long-term replacement for Luis Suarez through the middle. I think he would have been the signing that everyone would have said, OK, you've replaced him in the right way. Since then, obviously, there's been lots of others. Barcelona are saying that they will try once more for Coutinho, that they're semi-optimistic at around about 150 million euros. But, of course, Liverpool keep on saying no. So all these other names keep coming up. The other day, Dembélé was presented, and Robert Fernandez, the Barcelona sporting director, and by the way, part of the problem is there seem to be about 7 or 8 people with their hands on various elements of transfers at Barcelona. No one really knows who's in control. But he said, we hope to sign 1 more, possibly 2. Well, there's 24 hours to go, and they don't have any of them yet. Now, I'm not ruling out it going crazy tomorrow, but they say they're not interested in Mahrez. They say they're not interested in Lemar. They say it's all about Coutinho. But you know, we've seen. I mean, this evening we've seen the name of Özil thrown out there as well. It just seems completely without rhyme or reason at the moment. It's wild. It really is.
I hope it does go bonkers tomorrow because I want to see you have another late night, Sid.
Yeah, I know you do.
What's the price? What's the price for? What's the price for Mbappe when it finally happens in a year down the line? 180.
180.
So
Yeah.
this is absolutely bonkers, and Sid's right. This is absolutely bonkers. If you're prepared to go to 150 for Philippe Coutinho and you've got the Neymar money, you've got 30 million more for the hottest property in European, if not world football, who's, what, a good few years younger and arguably a lot better? How stupid is that from Barcelona? Direct replacement almost for Neymar, and you're sitting in your backside.
He's a Real Madrid fan. He can play for Barcelona.
Maybe so, but I will tell you what. Barcelona are so desperate at this point because you look at who the front three was over the weekend. It was Lionel Messi, Sergio Roberto, and Gerard Deulofeu. You'll get whoever at this point. And you'll go after anybody, and you'll pay whatever it is that they're asking. So that's why Barcelona are going crazy.
Apart from, as Craig mentioned before, Mesut Ozil.
Well, the other two.
Thank you very much, Sid. Enjoy the next few hours. Coming up after the break, we'll be wrapping up all the excitement from transfer deadline day. Welcome back, Gab. Let's end the show with a couple of transfers. Ross Barkley not going to Chelsea and Fernando Llorente going to Spurs.
Yep, Chelsea left with a fairly thin squad if you just add up the numbers, but they'd agreed a price with Everton. They agreed personal terms. He had his medical, and then something went wrong. His people put out the story that he changed his mind. My understanding is it could be something else. Maybe this deal gets done further on. And Fernando Llorente, big signing for Tottenham. You won't need to see Janssen come on when Harry Kane needs a breather. It's going to be the big man. Of course, scored a lot of goals for Swansea last year. And also earlier in the day, they signed Serge Aurier as well. So between those two, I think Spurs have won deadline day.
Wow.
Remember when transfers used to be relatively simple? Yep, come down. Do you want to come? Yep. What's the terms? Yep, agreed that. Medical, job done. Sign.
Right.
Now look at it.
What?
Shambles. It is, honestly.
Do you want to talk about Llorente or Barkley?
Llorente, I think, as Gab said, good signing for Tottenham because Janssen hasn't cut the mustard. So a good backup to Harry Kane, a different option. And I didn't get the Barkley one to Chelsea anyway, to be honest.
That seems a strange one.
I don't get Ross Barkley at all. This is a player that has shown us flashes, maybe moments where you think maybe there is something here, and then eventually he kind of falls off by the wayside, and you think that he would play at Chelsea. No chance he was going to get playing time at Chelsea. So it's either sitting at the bench at Everton or sitting at the bench at Chelsea. Either one doesn't really work for me.
Serge Aurier is an interesting one, isn't he? At Tottenham, a very, very good right back, and obviously he doesn't quite fancy Trippier after Walker has gone. But I get a feeling we might be talking about him on the show during the year for his on-field and potentially his off-field issues, because the lad has had quite a few.
I think you'd get on well with him, wouldn't you, off the field?
What are you trying to suggest?
What?
It's wrong,
It's a different era.
Yeah, well, this is it now, yeah.
More transfer from Spain tomorrow, I suppose.
Hey!
Yeah?
There you go.
Can't wait.
Thank you very much. You're off tomorrow.
Oh, I'm off.
Hey! We'll be here, though, don't worry. Goodbye.
Like it?
Share it.